Despite a record-setting launch, IGN reports that Electronic Arts has laid off an unknown number of developers across several studios that contributed to that record-setting launch of Battlefield 6. Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news show brave enough to still report these damn headlines. We are really sick of them, though.
What do you have to do? What do you have to do these days to stay employed as a game developer in the United States? I know that it's everywhere, but holy moly. And even if you do the impossible and give them a phenom game, they're just going to suck up all the money and ask you for another one. And the second that doesn't hit, they're going to lay you off. Sorry, I had to get it out of my system. But fuck me, this is ridiculous.
That's how we all feel, Lawrence. I don't know that there's anybody that doesn't feel this way, except for maybe the 20 people at the top of EA or whatever the fuck.
Andrew Wilson's having a great day.
Andrew Wilson's having a great day. You know what? He has a great day every day. IGN broke the news on Monday, reporting that developers from Criterion, DICE, Ripple Effect, and Motive Studios are the victims of a realignment across Battlefield's studios.
Love that word, huh? Yep, no studios will be closed at least, and Battlefield 6's live service will continue operating. So the game's not shutting down, but a whole lot of people's livelihoods just did. Jesus.
When asked for comment, an EA spokesperson told IGN that they, quote, made select changes within our Battlefield organization to better align our teams around what matters most to our community. Battlefield remains one of our biggest priorities, and we're continuing to invest in the franchise, guided by player feedback and insights from Battlefield Labs.
What do they mean by investment? Because clearly they don't mean in money or manpower. So, whatever.
Yeah.
IGN reports that these layoffs affect multiple teams across multiple studios, so it seems like it's just a general thinning of the herd. And now it's time to say the line.
We will say the line, Bart. Battlefield 6 was the best-selling game in the United States in 2025. Top selling. Over all other video. Call of Duty, all of them. And that's according to Circana analyst Matt Piscatella. I personally was very excited to see that, because I think Battlefield 6 is a great video game. I love it. I just played it recently. Had a blast. And I was telling people on stream, I was like, man, you guys know that this is the top-selling game in the United States for last year? And that came out in October.
And here we are, just barely 3 months into 2026, and it's not enough. It's just not enough. EA themselves put out a press release back in October 2025, bragging that Battlefield 6 had the biggest opening ever in the whole franchise, hitting over 7 million sales in the first 3 days, which is exceptional.
Man, that really is. It's a great video game. We're a little too early for maximum corpo resentment. EA's fiscal year ends on March 31st, at which point we'll learn just how much profit the publisher squeezed out of the year. And I'm sure Battlefield will have contributed to that quite a bit.
Absolutely. And I mean, speaking of contributions, that's probably why these layoffs are happening now. They want their books to look like they're on the way up right before the end of the year, so they can report that costs are going down and revenue's going up, and I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yep. Even though Battlefield 6 enjoyed a record-setting launch, its performance since it's probably what's falling short of EA's expectations. The game has slowly shed players since launch. It hit 750,000 concurrent players on Steam at launch, but now we're back down to, about 100,000.
Yeah, it's between there. At the beginning of the year, Battlefield 6 was pulling around 120,000 average around January, but it's kind of trickled out. Now it's about 60K on any given day.
Player sentiment has also soured. I was just reading the subreddit this morning, actually, with the base game sitting at a mixed review rating on Steam, while the free-to-play Battle Royale spinoff RedSec's recent reviews rate mostly negative. And I'm sure I can explain it, Lawrence, but I want you to talk about games as a service before we can talk about Battlefield specifically.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear what you have to say, because you followed Battlefield so closely. And theoretically, they did what they should have with this one. I'm just generally frustrated. I mean, with the EA, sure, but with any company, the companies are doing what they're doing. In a way, you can't blame the Scorpion for being a Scorpion, even though you hate it. I just wonder, is it even possible? No matter how good you do, is every games as service destined to fail, or maybe expectations just generally outrageously high for games as service? It's probably an intersection of the two. But these headlines are becoming aggravatingly common, and it's making me wonder if it's even possible. I think the most recent example we have of a service game that is still operating and seemingly still successful is Helldivers 2. And that's getting around 50 to 70 peak concurrent players per day. But maybe that's the benefit of having one studio operating a games of service instead of 4, or however many people EA had on Battlefield 6. And then Marathon is actually doing about those numbers too, around 60K a day. So does this mean it's all doomed? Is the market just so saturated that you just cannot find success? Or maybe you can only really do it with one studio, maybe like 80 people max. And that's an extremely tall order, as I think we just saw from Highguard. Of course, you could pin anything, and people do on that. But I think in the end, it was a genuine effort that just didn't find an audience because people have no time. They're not looking for a new games of service. I don't know. What do you think, Bruce? Please give me some insight about this.
I don't know. So I have lots of insight because I've been following Battlefield for a very long time. Obviously, after 2042's launch, everybody hated Battlefield for years and years. And I really did not think they could pull it off with Battlefield 6. I didn't. I thought for sure, I was like, this is it. This is the end of my franchise. Like, I love this franchise. Loved it for 25 years. And I was like, this is the death of it. And so when this game came out and they actually were doing Battlefield Labs months before the launch, because Labs was informing them on telling them how to make the game, Vince Zampella heading it up. Obviously, Vince has passed on now, but Vince Zampella heading it up. I was really encouraged. And Battlefield 6 was a fantastic video game. When I played it before it launched, I was loving it, having a blast. At launch, it was awesome. It still is really, really good. They've hit a few stumbling blocks along the way. Number one, in December with RedSec, they were going to have a huge RedSec tournament that was supposed to sort of bring esports to Battlefield. And I was in the tournament 1 hour before it started. RedSec's patch they had patched it a few hours previous. And 1 hour before that tournament started, they said, never mind, the patch fucked up RedSec. We're not gonna do it. And that was huge. That was a big deal because I was like, what? And so like hundreds of people, hundreds of esports pros couldn't play in this tournament, and then me, who's not an esports pro. And then they delayed, I believe it was season 2. It was either season 2 or season 1 that they delayed. I think it was season 2. And they delayed it out so that they could patch RedSec and patch Battlefield, make sure it was solid for that tournament. Well, here we are in March. No tournament has happened, unless it happened without me. But as far as I know, there's been no RedSec tournament. They've been working on RedSec. And then season 2 came out, and I played season 2, and it rock solid like it was at launch, which is good. They had brought it back to its form. But they launched with one map. And everyone was like, where are the other maps? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So they're supposed to be releasing a map like once a month or something like that, once every other month, which is okay, but I think it maybe is 3 maps total, possibly 2, for an entire season of content, which doesn't feel like a lot. Not to mention that, as usual, Battlefield players are constantly complaining about the fact that maps are too small. And I agree with them. I do think that maps should be larger. So we were excited to see more new maps and or revamped maps from previous Battlefields. But Season 2 just didn't feel like the content drop it needed to feel like after the delay. So there's a lot of problems that Battlefield has had. I'm gonna go all the way back to almost a year ago. EA said that Battlefield 6 needed to have 100 million players at launch. They didn't get that, obviously. They had a lot, though. And they brought all their studios together. Rumored budget was $400 to $500 million for Battlefield 6, which is a fuck ton of money. So I was expecting sort of realignment. Literally, I was expecting people to lose their jobs, but I was not expecting them to announce layoffs and then lay off a very large portion of people this soon. So that's a huge disappointment, and this is a massive blow to the Battlefield community because that does not feel like they are investing in the game that I love.
So this is an easy statement to whip up out of the ether, but players would probably be happier if there was more content, right?
Always.
Which almost to me kind of gets back to this idea that this is an impossible... Like, it's just not a market hurdle you can clear. Either you have enough people on staff to actually be able to generate content at the volume and the pace that people expect to stay engaged, or you just simply cost way too much and you can't afford it. I mean, I remember reading about this at Epic, how they just had to scale and scale and scale and scale and scale because people's voracious appetites for content for a live service game were just nearly impossible to satisfy. But they were able to do it because the audience was scaling with them, and they turned it into a whole marketplace economy, social media. It's everything. It's its own metaverse. That's the one, though. They did the one thing. I mean, you said 100 million players. It almost sounds like somebody was smoking some good shit at EA and thought that they had the next Fortnite on their hands, where it's Battlefield 6. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense, and it's vexing to me that how do they not know that? How do they not know that it's going to cost too much to make that volume of content, or they just have to be really efficient, which is what I think maybe. I'm blanking on the name. It starts with an A. The Helldivers folks?
Oh, Arrowhead.
Yeah, maybe Arrowhead to a lesser degree. Maybe Bungie. Maybe they. It feels like the only way to succeed now is to have a game that has an efficient content pipeline. And I don't think Battlefield has that. A map in Battlefield, even though it's small maybe compared to other Battlefields, it's still extremely vast compared to like a Call of Duty map. So I can see why they can't flip 3 or 4 of those in a given season of content and also make them playable and not have just loads of checkpoint or loads of choke points that people like funneling into and dying over and over again in Battlefield. So making a proper Battlefield map feels like it's orders of magnitude more effort than a traditional shooter map. So I can understand that, but also, god damn, it's just it's frustrating that I don't know that these numbers weren't squared before the game was launched and people's livelihoods got all sidetracked.
Yeah, this is just another example of what I see in the comments a lot on our episodes, which is like the AAA industry is dying because it's just the overreach, right? Like EA was, interestingly enough, weirdly, EA was like, you know what, we will give you $500 million, which is such a weird thing to do. And honestly, I got to hand it to the employees at all of those studios that were making Battlefield because they lobbied for that money and got it. So then EA was like, sure, why not? Yeah, here, go. But I'm sure they all promised them 100 million players. All of those developers, all those managers were like, we could get you 100 million players, knowing that probably wouldn't happen. So like I think that there's a lot of fault at the top. I think that there's a lot of mismanagement because I was really excited to see that they gave my franchise $500 million and a great video game. But now we're at where we're at because the Battlefield had a few obstacles, and that's pretty standard, I think, for a games as a service. Occasionally, the games as a service is not going to launch perfectly and then continue perfectly for 15 years. Like, there's going to be problems here and there, but no one accounted for those. I don't know. It's really weird.
It's weird and frustrating. And I guess we don't know the full scale of the layoffs. The game will continue operating. None of the studios are closed. So maybe I'm catastrophizing a little bit. But still, these things are frustrating. If the number 1 selling game of the year doesn't at least get you a year's worth of shielding, it didn't even get them 6 months. Well, maybe about 6 months. But is the games industry really that brutal? And if that's the case, then yeah, I guess this is AAA games are just going to spiral into the ocean. Thank God Capcom is still making something and keep people employed. Probably shouldn't say that. Not appropriate when people lost their jobs, but there are some studios we can look to, I guess, that can still find a way to ship a game in the modern times and entertain people.
Yeah, this is just a real bummer. And I need to reach out to a lot of the people that I know that work at these studios for Battlefield because I've spoken with them time and time again. And just so you know, we're recording this on a time crunch, which is why I was not able to reach out to them and maybe get a comment or what. I just want to make sure they're okay, to be fair. Because I really do love the developers that made this video game. I think the game is fantastic. And I don't want to see them lose more developers on this team because I want to see more content. I want to see this game kind of get to the heights that it should.
I agree. That's, I guess, what we can hope for, and I guess run the game a little more, give it our power. Hey, thanks very much for watching Inside Games Daily. Every time you watch one of our videos, it's one more day we don't have to lay ourselves off. So you've staved off the Reaper for a little bit, and thank you very much for that. Someday we might even be able to expand doing our games news as a service operation here. If you want to enable those dreams, make them come true, consider checking out our Patreon. You don't even really have to give us any money. All our content is there for free. Plus, I hand select a artisanal meme to go with every episode just to make it worth your while. So please check it out. We would like to shout out some folks that are already giving us some support here. So thank you very much. Bellingieri, Versa Light, UESC Battleroid, and JAmbers87. Being that one Battlefield rando that actually revives us. Oh my God, they exist. And we thank you for it.